I think there's two things. You have to have a good product. Otherwise, no one's going to want to be an advocate for your brand. And then the second thing is customer experience, and customer service goes into that. If you think about reviews and why people leave reviews, good or bad, it's because they can't believe what an amazing product it is and they have to share it with the world, or they had some kind of wow moment, or the opposite of that, right? A terrible experience, and so they're leaving a good or bad review. If you can really nail the product quality and the customer experience, you are naturally going to have brand advocates oozing out of your ears.
This is the Snowball Effect. You're listening to the Marketing Playbook series, presented by the Snowball Effect podcast. It's growth done right.
Hey, I'm Todd Jensen, and welcome to the Snowball Effect. This is our Marketing Playbook series, and I'm excited today to introduce the world to Eric Farmer. He's the CEO of Wallaroo Media. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Thanks, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you inviting me on.
It's good to have you, and I want to get right into it and ask you a little bit about your journey to becoming CEO of Wallaroo Media. But before I do that, I've got to ask you this, Eric. I'm on LinkedIn the other day, and I see, and if you're out there, go follow Eric Farmer on LinkedIn. But I'm going through there, and I see a picture of you on, I'm guessing it was your garage or your basement or something, and you're just laying there, sprawled out, having just completed the Murph. To anyone that doesn't know what that is, tell our people what the Murph is.
Yeah, so the Murph it's a CrossFit workout. You do it for time you're supposed to wear. So the prescribed workout is wearing, for men, a 20-pound weighted vest. For women, it's 14 pounds. But you time yourself doing a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another mile run. And then that's the end of it. But it's a brutal workout. And yeah, I got into CrossFit in 2011, and it was like really not that old. It was really new. A friend of mine introduced me. We were just gym bros, just going and working out at the gym, and it was kind of like that next exciting thing to get us out of the same old thing that we were doing every day. And I fell in love with it. It pushed my physical limits beyond what I knew I was capable of. And what's interesting about the Murph, and it scared me so bad. Like when I learned what it was.
You were already into CrossFit, and you're a gym rat at that stage. So what scared you about it?
That's what's so cool about it. Like, you can be in shape, you can be prepared for it, but if your mind isn't right, you can convince yourself of anything. And so I would make excuses to not do it, because you're supposed to do it, or the tradition is to do it on Memorial Day every year. So Memorial Day would roll around and I'd make up some excuse as to why I shouldn't do it. No, I don't need to prove myself, or I don't need to do that. And so I didn't do it for a long time, or I would, I don't know, change it, whatever. I finally decided, no, I need to go all in on this. And it's for me personally to tell myself, you can do this, and also face your fears, whatever, all that kind of thing. So I've been doing it every year for probably 5 or 6 years.
Oh,
And
that's incredible. I thought this was your first time, but this is a yearly thing for you.
it is. And I do it by myself in my garage, and it's me against me. I'm comparing myself to previous year or where I am currently, but I think it's more mental for me than physical at this point. And it is a good kind of intro, and because I think it's a good analogy to how I live my life and how I've gotten to where I am at pushing myself to my limits, whether that's professionally, physically, mentally, whatever that is, and getting through that and coming out the other side. And then you can do it. Like, you build confidence, you build resilience. And so it's a great intro, and it doesn't get any easier. Every year that you do it, whatever, how much you train for it, yes, you can get a faster time, but that just means you're pushing yourself to your limit that time, and it's just as hard.
You're so right. It's the perfect analogy for looking at the career journey that you've had. So walk us through that a little bit, your journey to CEO of Wallaroo Media.
Sure, man. It has been a journey. And looking back, I think you have to appreciate the good and the bad, because that's how I got here. If we take it way back to college days, it took 2 failed majors to realize, okay, biology is not for me. Engineering is not for me. And then I switched to advertising, and I actually started to enjoy my classes, thrive in school, like I was a happy person again.
What clicked for you, Eric? What was the thing that made this feel right?
So my college experience, like the first 2 years, was just kind of miserable, thinking like, is this really what I have to do to get a job someday? Is organic chemistry and advanced statistics or whatever? I had to figure out what I enjoyed doing. And it was a conversation with my mom saying, yeah, this doesn't feel right. And so anyway, just figuring it out, so I switched to advertising. And like after that, even just the first few weeks of classes, and just realizing, oh yeah, I feel like I fit here because I love human psychology. And so that's a lot of what plays into advertising, marketing. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do they buy what they buy?
We're kindred spirits there, Eric, because that's exactly the hook for me, is just what makes people tick. And you really get into that in marketing, don't you? So
Yeah,
you changed some of your major, you got into advertising, and then it looks like you had some really good opportunities early on in your career to really grow. Give us just a few highlights.
sure. So I've most of my career's here in Utah. I started off diving into PPC, Google Ads, becoming a PPC specialist at Orange Soda. So shout out to Orange Soda. And it kind of just set the stage. And the next step was I went in-house. I went away from agency to 1-800 contacts. And they were branching off, starting glasses.com. So I had the opportunity to be the digital marketing manager for glasses.com. So it helped me get my feet wet in things outside of paid media, like SEO, content, affiliate marketing. And I really learned all the different channels that a lot of businesses use to market. But I stayed and I fine tuned that paid media skill set. And that's what I've always leaned into, is the advertising side of it. So when Facebook ads came out, Twitter ads, we were on the forefront of testing those platforms, and I was diving in. And actually, so the next step was, after I had this awesome foundation, I think I've always been one to want to lead people. And so I was craving leadership, people management. And so I went on to start the paid department at 97th Floor. And so another agency, but they had never done paid. They were just content and SEO mostly. And that was a really, I think, pivotal moment for me, because I got to start hiring people. I built out a team of 5 people, counting myself, and managing them, and figuring out, like, yeah, what makes a good leader? How do you manage a team? And honestly, probably one of the biggest parts of my career that has gotten me here is getting let go from 97.4,
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me why you take that approach, that it was such a good thing for you.
because it shook me to my core. It was unexpected. I loved where I was at. So it basically wrecked me. It was a huge gut punch where I had to kind of reset. I had to look at everything and reevaluate what I wanted to do. And I think that for a long time, after that happened, because I was laid off for probably almost 2 months before finding work. And I think that I had a victim kind of mindset
Hmm.
for a little bit. Woe is me. Why did this happen to me? And I had to kind of wake myself up from that and decide that's not going to be who I am anymore. And so looking back on that now, well, a couple things. I'm so grateful for that, because I know what that feels like to be let go and just get wrecked. But also, it changed me mentally moving forward.
I loved so much about what you just shared there, Eric. I listen a lot to a guy named Brian Johnson on YouTube anyway, and he talks a lot about stoicism and grit and things like that. And he was talking about teaching his son, who had just failed in a chess tournament. And he said, son, there's really two options that you have as a human and that I think are healthy and acceptable. And that's either to win or to learn. And there is no lose. And the fact that you were able to take a gut punch like that and turn it into such a foundational learning opportunity for yourself, I think is really great. And that on the back of, I really loved how you articulated being a leader who, what was the phrase you said? You said, I'm always fine tuning so I can stay lethal. I love that. So even with that mindset of achieving an accomplishment, you still got a gut punch and were able to turn that into a learning experience. I just find that real, authentic, and honestly inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so to kind of finish up the story really quickly, that's when I met Brandon Doyle, who's one of the founders of Wallaroo. I was coaching his son in soccer, and we just got to talking marketing. And honestly, it took, I think, 3 years after we initially had like an initial conversation to get me over here. And 2 of those years were spent at Best Company.
That's right. We share a lot of colleagues here. Snowball was known as Best Company before, and you spent some time over here with Landon and the crew.
I did, and it's also, I cherish my time there and appreciate it because I learned so much at Best Company about company culture, like how to have a good company culture and how to hold people accountable, how to have autonomy. So a lot of good leadership skills. I didn't have a team there. I didn't manage anybody. I was back in the weeds doing the paid social for Best Company. But a lot of, I think, what I do today, I could attribute back to the way Landon leads his team because it was incredible.
Really well said. So that brings us, Eric, to where you're at now at Wallaroo. So walk us through, for audiences that might not be familiar with Wallaroo Media, explain exactly what it is that you do and some of the cool things that you're doing to help people.
Sure. Wallaroo Media is an ad agency, digital. So ideal customer or ideal client is an e-commerce brand. Typically they're on Shopify and they're at least at $1 million in ARR typically. So they probably a little bit bigger, but I'm saying that's kind of the minimum because there's a little bit of product market fit there. They have some history and some customers, right? And so we take them, and it's to the point where they can afford to outsource to an agency, but they need our expertise. They need what we've done hundreds of times with other brands. And that's to scale from that million or 2 million or 3 million to 10 million. And then from 10 million to 25, like we've scaled brands to solid 8-figure brands. And so that's our ideal customer. So what we do, our services, Meta ads and Google ads. And so we have a team of growth strategists, we call them, and they're media buyers, but they're more than a media buyer. And that's why we've expanded the role to be a growth strategist, because they know how to grow a brand using paid media. So they are a strategist at heart. They see the big picture. They work closely with the founder or a VP or someone high up in marketing at that company to forecast and help them understand, okay, in order to hit your revenue goals for the year, you need to be spending this much in ads. And so it's much more than just, hey, give us your ad spend and we'll manage that. We'll choose some audiences to test. And then our other team is our creative team. So we do all of the ad creative for the ads. And primarily that is more on the social side, TikTok, Meta, where creative is so important. And we've really leaned into that, I would say, the past 2 years with all the changes that are happening with iOS, for example, was a big thing, like the privacy. And so as the algorithms change and things outside of our control change, we've decided, okay, what's in our control to really own and add value to our clients? And that was with creative strategy. So we are coming to our clients every month with new creative concepts that they should be testing in their ads. And that's what we do. So we test them, we learn, and we use a lot of tools that help us make data-driven decisions. And then we iterate on those and test again. So those are kind of our two teams. We have our creative team, we have our media buying team, and together we help scale brands.
And all your experience with paid, I can see you being a perfect fit to lead a team that needs to be able to do that dance, right? Between the two and iterate and learn and grow. Let me ask you something with some of your clients. It sounds it sounds like they bring you in. They've got a proven, like you said, a product market fit. They're a healthy company, but they're ready to take that to the next level. And so they bring you in. What do you do to align their marketing strategy with their business strategy? Anything there that you do that you could help us out to understand how do we make sure that these two things are aligned?
Sure. I think, first of all, I think it's important that businesses have that, like, a more of a bigger, like a bigger strategy or vision, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, just kind of
Uh,
a broad vision of what they want. Right.
and that needs to be communicated all the time, constantly to their internal team. Their entire team needs to eat, drink, sleep the vision. And then we do kind of see ourselves as an extension of the brands we work with because they're not big enough to where they have a huge in-house marketing team. Again, that's why they've hired us. So we have to understand that us, and then every decision that's made internally for them ties back to that vision. And so the marketing strategy is just one of those things that needs to be incorporated into the bigger vision. Yes, we probably have more conversations around overall marketing strategy, but in order to help them grow the right way, we do have to understand what's the bigger picture, at least on an annual basis. What's your vision for this year, the next couple of years? I mean, I think it's crucial to answer your question. Like, it has to tie into that larger vision.
Do you ever run across some of those that are interested in turning some of their current happy customers into advocates? And I know this can be a little bit of a different world with e-commerce versus maybe service-based industries, but how do you communicate to a company how to turn these happy customers into more than that, into something that can actually propel and amplify their brand?
Yeah, so I am a paid marketer at heart, but as a paid marketer, our main goal is to acquire new customers. That's how they're going to grow. That's is getting more people to make that first purchase, right? That's our main objective. So when we get brands coming to us, we also vet them because I've made the mistake of not doing that. And then we work with brands that are either it's a bad fit, but what I'm getting at is the product matters
Mm.
so much. And if we can get people in the door to try the product, we tell our clients that it's your job to bring them back. And because they're going to love your product so much. And so it's important that we're working with brands that have a good product. And yes, that it doesn't necessarily make our job easier because the people we're going after don't know it's a good product yet, right?
Right.
So I think there's two things. You have to have a good product. Otherwise, no one's going to want to be an advocate for your brand. And then the second thing is customer experience, and customer service goes into that. If you think about reviews and why people leave reviews, good or bad, it's because they can't believe what an amazing product it is and they have to share it with the world, or they had some kind of wow moment, or the opposite of that, right? A terrible experience. And so they're leaving a good or bad review. If you can really nail the product quality and the customer experience, you are naturally going to have brand advocates oozing out of your ears.
I love that because it's such a natural extension. If they're doing some things the right way, they're going to enjoy some natural benefits of that. And you just taking so much of the, hey, we'll help you acquire new customers and help you grow that way. It just really frees them up to put more time into that customer experience, like you said, to invest more into that support team to make sure that those folks are having a good experience and to try to create as many of those wow moments. You really need those moments of delight, right? Those wow moments where now they're willing to go out there and share that. I find that to be really intriguing, even on an e-commerce side with reviews and things like that, as you mentioned. I want to talk a little bit. This podcast is shared with some startups out there. Is there anything you could share with them to take some of that enterprise level talent and insight that maybe they can apply even at the startup level. Any insights there that you could share?
For sure. And to be clear, we do actually work with a lot of startups. Again, it's a vetting process that we do, but if we feel like we have what it takes to help them, we will for sure even help a startup launch. I'm going to refer to something that a good friend of mine said. His name's Jay Davis, and he founded Pillow Cube, which is here in Utah. And I don't even know if this is his original saying, but I heard it from him. But he said you have to earn the right to be boring in your ads. And so
I'm intrigued. What does that mean?
so many startups think they're going to be the next Apple, or they say, I just want my advertising to come off like Apple. And it's, well, first off, okay, no one is going to be the next Apple, right? That's a unicorn. But also, you can't act today at phase zero where Apple's acting 40 years in or however long they've been around. They've earned the right to be super boring in their ads. Or Nike is a good example where if you just see the Nike swoosh, you know what it means. They don't have to have talking in their ads. It could just be someone running. It could be super boring. And there might be I don't know, 100 brands out there like that, right?
Right.
That's it though. But so when it comes to a startup, you haven't earned that. You need to be very engaging with your content. And since we're in the ad space, we'll talk ads. You have to be entertaining and educational. Take one of those angles, because yes, people's attention spans have vastly shortened over the years, especially with TikTok. And you have seriously less than 3 seconds to gain someone's attention. But if the content is good enough, people will watch it as long as they want. We have clients and they have 5-minute ads on YouTube or something, and they get views. People watching because it's entertaining and it's engaging. You have to have that. They have no brand awareness. So people need to learn who they are, what they do, what value they're adding to the world. And so that's what I would say is a huge one that I think is missed a lot with startups, is they're skipping that piece and they're trying to just move on to being the next Apple.
They want to leapfrog all that creativity and that hard work to get right to where, they can be super professional and sleek. And maybe there's a natural progression there. You've got to break through first. You've got to get people to pay attention to you. That makes a ton of sense. So earning that, I think that's fantastic advice. Help me understand a little bit. I want to talk a second, Eric, just about the relationship with you and your customers. And sometimes there's some unaligned expectations that I've seen in the past with an agency that is, they're bought in on that vision. This is the right client for us. We've got the talent, we've got the creativity to make this happen. But really, on an ongoing basis, past the honeymoon stage, keeping that connection between the two, that alignment between an agency like yours and a customer. Walk me through, how do you keep that open line of communication and that trust over the long haul?
Yeah, to take a little bit of a step back, we have 2 core values here at Wallaroo Media. One is relationships, and the other one is results. So it is my main goal to build strong relationships first with my team, and then the second layer is with clients. And yes, we're small enough where I have a personal relationship with all of our clients, and I oversee that client experience. And I want to make sure that it's the best it can be. But if I'm building that trust with our internal team, then it bleeds into our client relationship. And so then, to complete the circle, they trust us. And it's this hopefully long lasting, beautiful relationship where through the ups and downs, it's okay because we trust each other. So I think that's a huge part of it. But we can't just be best friends and trust each other. We want to get the results that they hire us for and that they're paying for. There has to be that ROI. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good the relationship is. They're eventually going to cancel just from a financial perspective. So those are 2 values, and everything that I do, every decision our leadership team makes, it goes back to those 2 things. So going back to your question, it's just super important for me to have those relationships with all of our clients. And I hope that we can get to a point where we're big enough where maybe I don't have the bandwidth to have that kind of relationship with every single client, but I've trained our team, and our team, someone on our team has that relationship with the clients. So we've had clients that have been with Wallaroo for 8 to 10 years. And that's really, those are outliers. That's not typical of an agency. But we've had a lot of clients that have been with us for 4 or 5 years, and that's also a very long time. And so it is easy to get complacent, especially with long lasting clients. You have a good relationship, they don't want to leave us. So you just kind of have to have the right process in place to do that proactive gut check every once in a while with the clients, make sure everything's aligned. And I would say, so communication is key. I don't think you can really over communicate. In my opinion, I think most people under communicate in life. And so they see just like normal amount of communication as over communication. But you can't over communicate. And we're very transparent, try to keep it very, very open. And what I've learned actually recently is, because we use Slack too with clients, but as great as Slack can be, there are certain conversations that shouldn't be happening over Slack or email. It should be happening over a call or in person.
What kind of conversations would you say are particularly good for one versus the other?
So I think any conversation around the relationship should be happening over, like, in real time. And then we've recently found out that a lot, like sometimes our creative conversations shouldn't be happening over Slack. Getting feedback on ads and stuff, because something's lost in translation. And I think we can get lazy using Slack sometimes because it's quick and easy, but just setting up a call and hammering it out over the phone is a lot more effective. So those are the types of things that I do. Like, I'm still doing that with clients. Maybe it's quarterly or twice a year, once a year, where I'm hopping on a call and I'm asking them, like, hey, give me your feedback. How's it going? Tell me honestly, I don't even care about the good. Tell me about the bad, because that's how we get better.
Well, the proof's in the pudding there. I mean, if you've got relationships at the agency level that have lasted 8 to 10 years, in another industry, that'd be like having a 30-year relationship, because agencies definitely can be a little bit more churn and burn. But so you must be delivering the results and then keeping that relationship alive in order to have a track record like that. So I really, really like that. If a client were to come up to you and say, hey, what intentionally can we do internally at our company to improve our word of mouth marketing? Eric, what kind of answer would you give them?
Oh man. So I think it kind of goes back to what I said about the two things, product and customer experience. As a paid marketer, though, like, that's probably not what I should be advocating for,
Right.
because we want people to invest in ads and have them hire us. But I think the best form of marketing is word of mouth. There's nothing that's going to be as effective or efficient from a cost standpoint, from a growth standpoint. But it's hard to have, I guess it's hard to create inorganic word of mouth experiences, or where customers are going to be sharing your product or whatever, an experience they had with you, inorganically, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense.
But I know a lot of brands do it. A lot of brands pay to play, or
Mm-hmm.
they pay influencers, or they pay someone to talk about their brand, but make it look organic.
Right.
And it's hard to do. I think it can be pulled off, but the best way is for it to be organic.
If it naturally grows from a great product, a great customer experience, there's one thing you won't have to worry about, and that's the authenticity of it. And so that makes a lot of sense. But I think you hit on some core principles there, that if that's part of your DNA within your company, product and your customer support, plus within your ad strategy, you're trying and you're iterating on some creative things, I think you do naturally get this really nice halo effect.
So a lot of brands, especially e-commerce brands, they have some kind of loyalty program,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not think that most of them are very good. And I think that there's a gap in incentivizing your most loyal customers, because there's a couple brands that I use that I can think of where I have made that brand so much money that they don't know about, because I have advocated for them. I have talked about them in everyday conversation.
That's
I
right.
have worn their product and people ask about it or whatever, have a conversation, right? And then someone ends up buying it because of my conversation. And I see that as a customer and I'm like, man, it would be cool if they knew about that. But that's how cool word of mouth advertising is. I'm still going to continue to advocate for these brands, even though I'm not being paid or incentivized for it, because I am such a believer in their product. But I think that there's a gap there that could definitely be solved where if you could incentivize your top clients and figure that out, they could make even more money.
I think you're spot on as far as identifying an opportunity there. There's a sweet spot. Those that aren't getting paid, like an influencer, to promote this, those that just organically, won't shut up about it because they love the product so much. But maybe there's that gap right in there where, with the right incentive program or the right levers that you might be able to intentionally make an impact there. I love that. I want to pick your brain here. Just a couple last questions for you, Eric. Let's look down the road a little bit. You have your finger to the wind. Things in the economy, things in technology, things that are really maybe rattling some people's cages, or just natural ebb and flows of trends within the marketing world itself. I want you to just look down the road just a little bit. And what do you see Wallaroo Media doing in the next 5 years or so? And then any thoughts on what are some of the current things you see around you happening, and how's Wallaroo adapting to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of my main jobs is to be able to stay on top of things so that we don't become irrelevant. With regards to Wallaroo specifically, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unknown and there's a lot of macroeconomic factors, just technology that is going to inevitably change how we operate. Or speaking of AI, it's just a lot of what we do on the creative side and on the media buying side is, I think, going to be consumed by AI in some form or another. Now, the question is if jobs will be eliminated. I have no idea. But that's something that we definitely are watching very closely and we lean into it where we can. We test a lot of tools and a lot of garbage, especially on the creative side.
Oh yeah. It's wild, wild west
Um,
on the creative side right now, right?
but they're going to get better, and
That's right.
it's
That's right.
and then there's some that we use, and we actually have built processes around them to become more efficient and lean into that. And actually, we communicate that to our clients, and they are very appreciative, saying, "Oh, okay, well, that's something that I wanted to know more about or test myself. So it's good to know that my agency is testing it." So AI is a huge one for us. I think in 2 years, it's going to be very different, and that's not very far away. And advertising world is always changing. Agency life is fast paced and always changing. I think that's the biggest one right now. Then there are other things. So we're service based, and
Mhm.
AI can take over a lot of maybe services. So to counteract that or whatever, I think we have to keep an open mind. We have a lot of data, we have a lot of experience growing e commerce brands. Can we become an e commerce brand? Can we have our own product? Because AI is not going to replace physical products to my knowledge. So that AI can't push us out of that. So we could eventually become our own e-commerce brand. I mean, we could evolve, like we're keeping a very open mind here, right? That's just like one option. Or a SaaS company. Like what's a SaaS tool that we could lean into? And maybe it could be AI based
Mhm.
because we see a lot of trends or problems that all of our customers are having. Okay, so how can we, as an agency that's recognized this pain point, solve for it? And maybe that's through software. I don't know. There's so, and then another option is we're always looking or keeping an open mind again. Acquisition, is that on the table? Can a Wallaroo get acquired? So I want to keep an open mind about it, but also like very proactive about making sure that we're innovating and evolving to stay relevant.
It sounds like your team is just willing to jump in and start implementing. And instead of just complaining on the sideline, you're in there, you're learning how to surf this wave. And I think that's a really, really healthy place to be in to position yourself for the future. Anything else you would add as far as cool things you have coming down the road for Wallaroo Media, or anything you want to highlight?
I think just no, we're not going anywhere. We're like I said, and this is kind of just like another mantra I have in life is just keep showing up. And so that's what we're going to do in whatever service it is or whatever we're doing. We're going to keep showing up. And if you combine that consistency of keep showing up with time, I mean, it compounds to something great over a long period of time.
That's a real winning formula. And I love that. I can't imagine more trust that customers could have in you, just knowing that, hey, they've got a track record of these long, sustained relationships and results. But then, you know what? With all the headwinds and all the uncertainty, who would I rather have as my sidekick here to help walk us through this uncertainty? And having a team like yours, being able to help them navigate through this, I can't imagine a nicer thing that would just help them sleep better at night.
I hope so. I hope they see that.
That's fantastic. Now I want to pick your brain as my last question here, Eric. You've had a great journey in marketing. You now are the CEO of a really well-known agency that's doing great work. What personal advice do you have for marketers and business leaders out there?
Yeah, so I think, man, I am an advocate for personal excellence. And I feel like a lot of leaders or founders, whoever it is, doesn't have to be the founder, it could be just anyone. Oftentimes they lose themselves in their work or the business that they're starting. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Like sometimes to get things off the ground or to get through a hard time, like you really have to be all in. And, but what happens is you forget about some things that really matter in life. And if you drop the ball in certain areas, it will eventually bleed into your business, your career, and affect it in a really negative way. And so my advice is you have to be unapologetically selfish, and then you can be as selfless as you want.
Let me double click on that. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean there.
Well, there's an analogy of oxygen masks in an airplane. They always tell you to put your mask on first before you can help the person next to you. And so if we use that just in life, me as a father, as a husband, as a CEO, I am selfish when it comes to my health, taking care of myself. I put that first because if I am not healthy, what else do I have? And how am I supposed to support my family and my business? So, as in the worst of times, in the hardest of times, when I'm still putting that first, I'm finding time to work out or exercise, get enough sleep, eat right. And it's a game changer. You have to be doing those things because it will just bleed into your business.
So well said. I heard once that I think really builds off of what you said, that the most valuable people when things go bad, which we're all going to endure professionally, personally, the most valuable person when things are really hitting the fan is the person with the slowest heart rate, the person that's breathing the easiest, the person that has earned and built up the calluses and the strength to be the calmest and the strongest one in the room. And if you do that, then you're going to be just that pillar of strength that others are going to need to get through that hard time. And building that on the things that you said, I mean, it comes down to eating, like I've always heard, eat, sleep, move, relationships. Those are those foundational pieces. You got to get those down before you can, and be selfish on those things. I love that, Eric, before you can be a strength to your customers or to your colleagues. It's really been a privilege to pick your brain today and to get some of your professional and technical insights, but then also on the personal front, some things that we can really look at incorporating into our life. So thank you so much for joining. But share with our audience, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to connect with you and pick your brain or learn more about your services, what's the best way for them to do that, Eric?
Yeah, Todd, thank you for having me today. This has been awesome. I appreciate it. So, I would say where I'm most active is LinkedIn. Search for my name, Eric Farmer. CEO of Wallaroo. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. Eric D. Farmer is my handle there. Those are probably my two socials that I'm on the most.
This has been great. If you want to learn more from Eric and get these real life, authentic insights, follow him on LinkedIn. I can attest that that's exactly where he shares what it's really like to excel in all areas of your life. Eric, thanks so much for joining the Snowball Effect podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time on the Snowball Effect.